have a minute or two?
Yeah, I am just contacting Larissa right now, so they should be joining shortly here.
Okay, sounds good. And Craig, I've hit send, so you should,
Got it. Thanks.
there you go. Try and make it easy. Okay, well, I guess before they join, Craig, I'm going to officially hand chair over to you because I have a conflict.
Thanks. So we're doing that one first.
Yes.
Okay. Ashley, has the group joined yet? Is that the ET3 or is that you?
No, sorry, that's just us. The other
Okay.
on the way though. Yeah,
Okay,
it looks like
there.
Hey, Larissa. Just to let you know, I've turned the chair over to Craig, so he'll be doing your intro. But if you could just let us know when the rest of your team joins, it would be great.
Sounds good. Yeah, I just
Thank you.
fired off the link to everybody, so hoping they'll all pop on shortly.
After we told you we may be running behind, but we're actually running ahead.
Yeah, it kind of panicked me. I was like, oh my God, my phone. I thought I had 10 more minutes, but that's okay. That means maybe we'll be done earlier. I don't know.
And then I also don't know, Larissa, if you're the one sharing your screen, but if you are, you could share.
It sure is me. I've only tested it out like 4 times today because I've been nervous about this not going well and wanting it to go well. So hopefully it cooperates the same way it did this morning. There's Ryan. Hopefully the internet for the others getting the link is not too slow. We tried to keep the team pretty lean, but everybody wanted to join. I don't know if that's always the case with EDC, that everybody wants to be part of it, but
it's a public meeting. They can join at any time.
this is true. Yeah, see. But if they do take a little bit more time, Janice and Craig, we're happy, I think, to get started if we want to make the best use of everyone else's time, because Ryan and I will be presenting. Everyone else is here, or everyone else, sorry, who will be joining is more for moral support, and then the questions and answer period at the end. They've already heard the presentation.
I'd say you're scheduled. We got a little feedback there. I'd say you were scheduled for 4:30, so I'd just give it a minute.
Sure. In the meantime, I've got the first slide up. I think that's displaying.
Yeah, we can see that.
Yay.
Okay, and then for the committee, I just put the committee question order into the chat. And then with that, it's Craig's show now.
Are you dropping off, Janice, completely?
No, I'm gonna be here for moral support.
Okay. Okay.
But we have quorum without me, so I'll say that I am a conflict of interest. Not that I'm working on the project, but keep it clean.
Fair enough. It looks like our first team member has joined. We'll see if a couple others might pop on within the next few minutes before we get started.
Might as well test my mic now. Coming through okay?
Good idea, Ryan. I
Yep.
can hear.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, Larissa, you ready to get going?
Yeah, I think we just
Okay.
do it. And if
Okay.
can join, I can always just double check before we get to the Q&A. My only intention with having the larger team, like I said, join was to assist with some maybe more complex questions that I can rely on other team members to jump in on. But I'll just double check who's on the call there so I don't direct anything to anyone who hasn't joined.
Okay.
How's that?
Good. Yeah, let's get going. Welcome to the Edmonton Design Committee for the formal presentation of the Capital Line Southeast LRT Corridor and transportation structures. We would like to remind you that this is a public meeting. We have all received and reviewed your submission package. Your team will have 20 minutes to present, and then we will go into virtual roundtable of the committee members for questions. After the presentation, the committee will deliberate and respond to you in writing within 48 hours. We would like to acknowledge one conflict for this project. Janice Mills, she will remain in the meeting as a member of the public, but she will not participate in the round of questions or deliberations. I will now turn it over to you to introduce your team and the project.
Great, thank you, Craig. We'll do the intro and the project as part of the slide deck. So without further ado, we'll just jump in. So good evening, and everyone. Welcome to the first formal presentation for the Capital Line South Extension Project. Craig, you said Southeast, which is something I get tripped on as well. The SE stands for South Extension.
Sorry.
All good, all good. If I say
That was my
Southeast,
fault.
if I say Southeast at any point, please correct me. But nevertheless, this presentation is being hosted by the Capital Line Design Build Limited. It's a member of the Ledcor group of companies with AECOM as their design partner. My name is Larissa Alcar. I'll be one of two presenters today. I am the Sustainable Urban Integration Lead amongst some other roles for the design team. And joining me is Ryan Meyer, co-presenting, also a Sustainable Urban Integration Lead representing the construction team, amongst many other roles on the project. And I'll just briefly mention we have some other folks from the Capital Line Design Build Limited team on the call, as well as folks from the city of Edmonton, the owner of the project, as well as Capital Line Partners, which is their owner's engineering team. So the Capital Line South Extension is a large infrastructure project with many components, perhaps a little atypical for EDC. So today is really just the first of 4 or maybe 5 formal presentations we'll be doing for the project. Today's will be focused on the multimodal corridor and the 3 transportation structures. And we kindly ask that ADC try and tailor some questions accordingly because there is a whole bunch more information yet to come. Wanted to just flash up on screen a quick agenda, which we hope to stick to for the breakdown of today's presentation. Again, we have that 20 minutes Craig shared. So lots of time hopefully at the end there for questions, and we'll get going. So collectively, the Capital Line and Metro Line form the existing high floor LRT system in the city of Edmonton. Sorry, jumping forward when I shouldn't be. The Capital Line extension, which is part of the city's larger LRT network plan, will be completed in 2 phases. And Capital Line Design Build Limited was awarded the design build contract for phase 1 in June of 2024. And we're looking at a 4.5-kilometer extension from Century Park to Heritage Valley. And we'll often refer to that as the project going forward. Otherwise, phase 2 is still yet to be funded, but that would see the project continue on further south to about 41st Avenue or Allard and Desrochers area. My slides are very jumpy. Sorry, guys. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, guys. Let me get us back to the right slide. So, project highlights. Directly along the LRT corridor, starting from north to south, we've got our existing terminus, the Century Park LRT station, which we'll be tying into. Following that, we've got the 23rd Ave underpass, then the Black Mud Creek LRT bridge, Twin Brook Station, Anthony Henday Drive Bridge, and then last but not least, the Heritage Valley North Station, which will serve as the new terminus, as well as a multimodal connection to the existing transit center park and ride. And off corridor or corridor adjacent, we like to say, we've got the Lou Lawrence Operations and Maintenance Facility, as well as 3 utility complexes and a traction power substation. So you might have heard this term in industry before, maybe not, but Sustainable Urban Integration, or SUI, is an overarching contractual design principle that helps guide all design and construction decisions on this project. It was developed by the city of Edmonton in 2012, and quite simply put, SUI reimagines traditional transit design. Instead of focusing solely on the function, let's say from getting passengers A to B as fast as we can, SUI really allows us to shift conversations and elevate the importance of considerations such as environmental preservation, neighborhood and pedestrian-friendly design, placemaking, passenger comfort and safety, as well as transit-oriented design. And you might have seen in the submission contents that SUI can be further broken down into 4 key values, the first of which is pedestrians first. Although it's not limited to just passengers or users of the LRT system, it's important that the corridor and infrastructure contribute to a multimodal way of life for all users. The second is sustainable. We're striving to minimize the impact of the new infrastructure on its surrounding environment. Third, we've got flexible and adaptable. We want to be able to recognize the future short-term and long-term potential influences, as well as their impacts and potential implications. And lastly, we have integrated. We are committed to providing a seamless environment where all components are designed and located in a manner that supports the cohesive, holistic design intent while allowing for unencumbered access of the corridor. And each of these values can be broken down into more tangible but more interconnected goals and objectives. So we do believe there are a lot of synergies between sustainable urban integration and EDC's principles of urban design. The 4 key goals I just described can be broken down, like I said, into 6 goals and further into objectives. Whereas everybody on the call, I think, knows the principles of urban design have the 3 overarching principles and the 11 supporting principles. I think the key difference here is that SUI just allows us to tailor conversations and focus on LRT corridors and infrastructure. So the LRT corridor is the first real topic, I'll say, of today's presentation. And the intent is really to focus on the transportation network and connectivity along the multimodal corridor. And we plan to get more into the details of SUI and user experiences, including character zones, pedestrian priority zones, etc., in our 5th and final formal presentation to EDC. But big picture, the majority of the alignment you see here on screen is along 111th Street. The LRT will run in a dedicated or segregated corridor that parallels a lot of the other modes that you see. And for the most part, we are maintaining the existing vehicular traffic configuration, both in numbers, as well as the pedestrian cyclist movements. And if you couldn't see anything on that previous screen, we thought we'd just zoom in a bit and allow everybody to appreciate some of the details. Just keep in mind where you see that north arrow pointing, because the orientation does change. Right now, north is to the left. If we start off with LRT, which is shown here in purple, we tie into, like I said, the Century Park Station at grade, and that's within the median between the two roadways. And we actually use the 23rd Avenue underpass that travels below the 23rd Avenue intersection to skew the LRT diagonally so it can transition to the west side of 111th Street. All the SUP connections on the maps here are shown in orange. We're going to tie into the existing network along the west side of 111th Street. There's an existing pedestrian bridge connection to Century Park Station that we're closely tying into there. And SUP users will have to cross 23rd Avenue at grade and then continue their journey south of the intersection. And at that point, they'll be between the tracks and the existing property fences. And then sidewalk connections are limited to the east side of the intersections and roadways, and those mimic a lot of the existing conditions you see today. If we head a little bit further south, the LRT does surface again around 20th Avenue, at which point we run at grade along the west side of 111th Street, with the exception of Black Mud Creek Ravine, where we have to elevate. The SUP, like I mentioned earlier, is again west side of the tracks here, up until the south side of Saddleback Road and 19th Avenue intersection. And at this point, SUP users can either choose to cross the tracks and continue their journey south along the corridor using the existing 111th Street roadway bridge, or they can continue on the west side of the tracks and duck into the existing trail network within the ravine. And it is worth noting that previously there was plans to have the SUP shift onto a new bridge as part of this project. We've since made a decision to no longer go ahead with that plan. So the Black Mud Creek LRT bridge is dedicated LRT in this approach, and the existing roadway bridge will continue to allow those users to use existing SUP infrastructure. And as part of that decision too, we've maintained 2 lanes of vehicular traffic along 111th Street in each direction, whereas at one point there was a thought about adding a 3rd lane. And again, just quickly, sidewalks, you'll see here in yellow on the east side. It does kind of disrupt, if you will, in a way, at the ravine where folks can tie into that existing trail system as well. So south of Black Mud Creek, the LRT continues again at grade along the west side of 111th Street. This is where we have our first station, Twin Brook Station, which is just north of 9th Avenue. And the SUP continues between that roadway and trackway configuration up until 9th Avenue, at which point users will have to cross 111th Street and continue their journey south along the east side of the roadway. And that will allow them to use the existing roadway bridge over Anthony Henday Drive. And then the sidewalk here is quite disrupted in some ways, where we just have east-west movements at the intersections themselves, but that is similar to the existing condition. There's no connection between 12th Ave and 9th Avenue. And I will highlight, though, one improvement we've been able to make as part of maintaining that 2 lanes of traffic and not adding that 3rd lane, is we were able to add pedestrian crossings at both 12th Avenue and 9th Avenue along the north sides of these intersections. Previously, we actually just had a south pedestrian crossing in those areas. Okay, now we're in the less exciting part of the alignment. We've got south of 9th Avenue, that LRT starts to skew to the west as we approach the Transportation Utility Corridor and Anthony Henday Drive. We'll slowly gain elevation through the space, allowing the bridge to cross over Anthony Henday diagonally. Again, this structure is dedicated to LRT. There's no pedestrians through this section. And south of the Anthony Henday Drive roadway lanes, we start to transition down and start to skew west, and the roadway will pass below. And further west of there, we continue with the tracks at grade north of the McEwen neighborhood, and we start to bend the track south. There is a point at which the track can split into 2, so we've got the trains allowing to enter the Lou Lawrence Operations and Maintenance Facility site, whereas the mainline track continues along the west side of that facility and ultimately brings us to the new terminus of the Capital Line, which is at Heritage Valley, the north side of Ellerslie Road. The tracks will actually stop a little bit short of there, north of the existing east-west SUP. Folks will enter the Heritage Valley North Station, both from the north and south sides of the station. It's a center loading platform. And we've got a couple of little SUP connections to allow transfers from the Heritage Valley area to the Lou Lawrence Operations and Maintenance Facility site. There's a storm pond path and then some sidewalk connections to that building. And ultimately, this will be the terminus and will allow for a multimodal corridor hub and allow transfers with the bus transit center and the park and ride. Now that you're sick of hearing from me, I'm going to pass it off to Ryan, who's going to present the transportation structures.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Larissa. So I'll be going through the major transportation structures on the project today. For the first one, the 23rd Avenue underpass, will start at the north end of our LRT corridor here. So we're just south of the existing Century Park Station in this image. This is a plan view of the 111th Street and 23rd Avenue roadway intersection. You can see the track alignment there shown in purple, and north is facing to the left side of the page. So at this intersection, the city used the crossing assessment framework to determine that grade separation of that LRT alignment shown in purple would be necessary. So basically what that means is in the dotted line portion there, the LRT crosses under 23rd Avenue and is buried underneath the intersection. So what's beneficial about that is basically the new underpass will allow vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists to use the reconstructed intersection in a very similar fashion to the existing or pre-construction condition. So we'll jump into a little bit more detail here. So this is a rendering of that same intersection. This time the page is flipped. So North and Century Park are on the right side here. What we're looking at is a bird's eye view of the intersection. What you can really see is the open air portal sections on either end. This is where the LRT transitions from at grade to below grade underneath the intersection. And then between those portal sections, we have the underpass or tunnel portion of the structure, which is buried beneath the intersection. And as Larissa mentioned earlier, basically this structure is shifting the LRT alignment from the median between the 111th Street roadway, where the Century Park Station is, and moving it to the west side of 111th Street, where it continues south along the corridor. So jumping into kind of a more detailed shot here, we're at the north portal this time. So these two shots are looking south down the corridor and 111th Street. On the left side, we have a bird's eye view, and then on the right side, we have more of a track level view, both looking south. So what you can see in the bird's eye view is we have the 111th Street roadway on either side. So users driving by this structure are generally going to see a concrete crash resistant barrier and then the portal fencing on top. You can see that the portals rely on concrete struts at the deepest sections right before the underpass starts, and that's to provide lateral stability for the structure. And then on top of that concrete crash barrier, what we have is black Omega fencing, basically to protect the opening and prevent any fall hazards there. Looking at the image on the right, we're down at the track level now. So primarily what we have are cast in place concrete finishes. There is a bit of an exception there. We have these durable fire rated insulated facing panels that are kind of shown. They're a little bit shiny in the image. The exact finish and color is still kind of a work in progress, but basically these are provided to insulate the structural secant pile walls and provide kind of a uniform finish for users on the train. We are focused on making sure that whatever finish we pick on those panels does integrate with the surroundings and provides clean, simple lines and basically seamless transitions between the different types of materials being used here. And it should be noted, you can see a train in the image there. It is a bit of a static image, so trains are going to be going up to 70 kilometers an hour in the portal section. So users riding on the LRT are generally going to see blurred lines looking out the windows. And then jumping over to the south portal. So this is obviously the south side. Now we're looking north down 111th Street and back towards Century Park. track level view on the left, bird's eye view on the right. So what you can see generally with the south portal is there's a lot more struts, and that's because the transition back to grade is a little bit more gradual. So that deeper section in the portal exists for longer. It's a little bit difficult to tell in the image on the left. It's kind of dark. You can see that there is a central wall in the underpass that separates the northbound and southbound tracks. That's a cast in place concrete wall. Back to the right side. So now we're looking at that bird's eye again. You can see the reconstructed shared use path on the west side of the south portal there. And then we have 111th Street roadway on the east side of the portal. So that SUP on the west side there, we are going to have ornamental landscaping, increased pedestrian lighting. So it is going to increase the user experience there and improve it. And we're using that same Omega fencing that you saw on the north portal that's shown in black. One thing we are looking at in collaboration with the city and the Edmonton Arts Council is to potentially use that Omega fencing there as a public art opportunity and affix some public art there, as it'll be highly visible to people walking by this structure. So again, kind of heading south down the corridor, as we showed earlier here, this is the Blackmud Creek LRT bridge, located over the existing Blackmud Creek ravine, approximately halfway between 12th Avenue and 19th Avenue, which is Saddleback Road, just south of the YMCA there. What we have here are multiple spans over the Blackmud Creek ravine. We are maintaining SUP access below the bridge, east side of 111th Street, so no reconstruction there. And then we are reconstructing the SUP kind of, as Larissa mentioned earlier, on the west side of the new LRT bridge and tying into that existing SUP in the ravine there. So not too much change for users there. And this bridge is going to be offset approximately 5 meters from the existing 111th Street roadway bridge. So kind of looking at more of a rendering or a visual what this structure might look like. Again, we're looking south down the LRT corridor here. So south down 111th Street, where you can imagine we're on the north bank of the Blackmud Creek ravine. We're trying to, help illustrate what that reconstructed SUP and trail connection may look like on the west side of the bridge there. Generally, we have unpainted concrete finishes for more of a natural look, consistent with other recently constructed LRTs in the city. We have galvanized steel railing on both sides of the deck. This is to protect LRT maintenance staff. As mentioned earlier, this is a dedicated LRT structure, so no pedestrian activity crossing this bridge. The piers themselves are going to be very similar in size, shape, and finish to those existing piers on the 111th Street roadway bridges. You wouldn't be able to tell in this rendering, but there is an architectural reveal on those piers, so we'll be looking to match that to provide some continuity there. You can see under the approach spans that are quite low to the ground, we are providing a protective Omega fencing to block off those voids and basically deter any unwanted activity underneath the bridge. And then on the bridge, there's overhead catenary poles, no dedicated light poles on the LRT bridge. So we'll be making some slight modifications to the light poles on the roadway bridge, putting a double davit head on there to provide the trackway illumination that's required for the LRT structure. And just kind of Edmonton's obviously a winter city, so here's just a visual of what the structure might look like during some of the more cold months of the year, obviously. And yeah, really just trying to showcase what some of those finishes might look like in the winter there. Moving south to our third and final transportation structure, this is the Anthony Henday Drive LRT bridge. Again, as Larissa mentioned, a dedicated LRT structure, so no provisions for general pedestrian access across the LRT right away. Within the TUC and Anthony Henday Drive area on this project, we're positioned west of the existing 111th Street roadway bridge. It's not shown on this plan, but it's just to the east there. And we're crossing the Anthony Henday Drive. You can kind of see some of the line work there. We're crossing at a skew of approximately 50 degrees. So not coming across the highway perpendicular, but crossing at a skew. So looking at, more of a detailed visual, what this signature structure might look like. So we're traveling eastbound on Anthony Henday Drive here. You can see in the background this time that existing 111th Street roadway bridge there, and then come to the foreground. This is our new LRT structure. It's a combination of concrete and steel materials. So we'll start with the piers and kind of the approach structures. We're using cast in place concrete, which will be again unpainted for kind of that natural finish. Main spans, the main white spans there over Anthony Henday Drive, are twin network arch spans with inclined crossing cable hangers. And this is one of the most effective structural designs for long spans. So we have 83-meter spans on this bridge. The superstructure itself, we're limiting the use of bolted connections in the design, and we're limiting the use of concrete diaphragms to kind of provide clean, uninterrupted lines that are visually appealing to users and drivers. The structural steel and cable hangers are shot painted white to provide a uniform appearance. The exception there is the steel that is underneath the bridge deck between the edge girders and generally in shadow is going to be unpainted weathering steel. And that's just because it's generally not going to be seen by road users who are traveling at high speeds along Henday, passing underneath this structure. Again, galvanized railing on either sides of the deck for maintenance only, consistent with the Black Mud Creek Bridge, more of an OH&S compliant railing. And we're still working to develop kind of a low-level lighting design for this structure to provide the 10 lux requirement for the LRT tracks and the train operators. And with that, I think that's our summary. So I'll open the floor up to questions.
Perfect. Thank you. Right on time. Thank you for the presentation. Jonathan, would you like to kick off the questions?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Looking forward to this series of presentations to come here for this south extension of the Capital Line. It's exciting to see. I guess, yeah, it was pretty thorough in what you showed, and I think I don't have too many concerns. I guess, like, for me, I really like any of the kind of LRT extensions that have been done in the past where they do incorporate elements of public art. This is a very kind of basic infrastructure that's being installed right in the middle of communities typically, and so I think there are many opportunities where we can get Edmonton Arts Council involved, and find ways to have some local artists do some art, especially in areas where, for example, you mentioned just before the Black Mud Creek crossing, there's that area where that'll have to be fenced off because it's sort of like a small kind of crawl space type opening. Perhaps that could be a location for some sort of kind of mural art or something, because especially because the shared use path runs right below that area. So yeah, just emphasizing wherever there are areas, particularly with pedestrians, really close to the tracks, if there's an opportunity to incorporate public art, I think is welcome. Were there any considerations in terms of like connections across the Henday for cyclists, like to go kind of along the track of the bridge that kind of lead to the Heritage Valley station in the future? Has that ever been a consideration? I'm not sure if it's referenced in the bike plan or anything, but I was just curious. I don't know if that's a question for the city or.
I was hoping, I saw some of our other folks join, so I don't want to put Eva on the spot, but I feel like Eva has maybe the most background there to know if that was ever considered prior to the decision being made for a dedicated LRT bridge over Anthony Henday Drive.
Yeah, I think the question has come up in the past, and in reviewing from across the Henday area and where it's connecting to, it was felt that it was a long distance and kind of away from where the general public or the cyclists may want to travel in. So the volume won't be very high. So in reviewing that, and then it was determined that it probably wouldn't be a good location to attach to the LRT bridge in that location.
Okay. Thanks for that response. Yeah, I think those are all my comments I had in this presentation. I'll pass it on to the next person. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Paquette. I see you have your hand up.
Oh, thank you. It's a rarity for me to weigh in, but I want to thank you for the presentation. That was excellent. I also want to go back to the area where you would have fencing for some of the access to under the bridge. And I was just wondering what kind of fencing that would look like, because I'm just curious if that's going to be like, hard, like bars of steel maybe, or if you're looking at chain link fencing.
Yeah, good question. I think we might have breezed over the type of fencing, or working off an assumption that folks know what omega fencing is. Perhaps we know what it is as part of the project team, but maybe that term is not known by all on the call. So
Not by me.
see this. We use a lot of acronyms on this project as well that I feel like I always have to define when using it in different settings. So omega is just a brand of fencing. They call it a welded wire mesh fencing. It's used a lot around the city. I don't know, Aaron, if you've driven the existing Capital Line corridor. There's a lot of omega fencing along the tops of retaining structures. It's like a thin metal wire that's spaced, a couple inches apart vertically, and then has actually quite a few horizontals. So it's a lot more pleasant looking than a chain link. Cities had, I think, lots of good experience with it and continue to use it on infrastructure projects, and other, I think, like building projects use it for landscaping on sites. So that's the current product that's being used in that location below the Black Mud Creek LRT approaches.
Okay, because I think it's important, obviously, to limit access. It's not a safe place to camp or sleep or play. So, we've noticed that sometimes when people want to get access, they'll find a way. So, would you say that this omega fencing helps to inhibit that easier access that some fences provide if you just bring some bolt cutters?
So good question. I don't think you could, I think you could use bolt cutters and cut through the same way I think you could cut through a chain link fence. That type of fence is specifically called out in our contract right now, but we can always take away if there should be looking at more durable materials. I think it's always this balance we're trying to strike, right? With using something that's really, but perhaps it's more durable. Even if something as far as like a concrete wall would really block it off. But then you don't actually have any like transparency or visibility into those areas to know like what actually is going on. So I think we're trying to find that balance between the way of blocking it off to deter any activity, but also making sure that whatever could potentially happen in there, because people always seem to find ways, that there's that visibility, so then it can be addressed in whatever way it needs to.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm just thinking about the cost-benefit ratio there of constantly repairing a fence versus just putting in something a little bit more durable. Okay, and then moving on, I noticed that in some of the sort of areas where the train is going underground or coming up, you've got the landscaping. And one of the things that has really been a topic of conversation as far as long-term benefits is just if the landscaping is grass, for example, that carries a maintenance cost, and sometimes that maintenance isn't what we would like it to be. And so what was envisioned ends up looking a little bit neglected and ratty. And I'm just wondering if that's something that is being taken into account when it comes to landscaping. Like what is the long-term impact and what's going to take the least amount of maintenance, even if it comes to mowing? So does it have to be grass, for example, or can we use some other approach?
I know that's been a hot topic for the city, especially along some of these LRT corridors where there's a desire, let's say, for enhanced landscaping, but then again, weighing that against long-term operations and maintenance. For this project, I think the use of sod specifically that requires maintenance and mowing to make it look nice. We do have limited use of it. We actually use a lot of times a naturalized seed mix in areas, which then requires less maintenance without, it's meant to look more natural. And then I think the growth of it is less than like a sod. So using that, or just in places that we know that are less accessible, or just more prone to, let's say, foot traffic or snow storage, etc., using more of a hard surface or like a mulch bed in those areas, and really strategically placing any sort of landscaping or softscaping such as grass or sod in areas that have longer continuous woods that would be regularly maintained, so that it really makes sense.
Yeah, or even a permeable material that might not take any maintenance, really. practically speaking, might be a good idea. Okay, so that's interesting. And then the last point is that what I've noticed in these kinds of constructions in other cities is that they use the building material to create visual interest. And so it doesn't actually cost much more. It's a marginal maybe impact to the overall budget, but they, instead of just a flat surface, they might have design incorporated into the surface that reflects the landscape of the area. And I'm just wondering if there was any thought into that sort of desire from the public to see a little bit more variation than just like, and I get it. I appreciate the long, clean lines as well. But at the same time, it's public facing and the public may have different priorities.
Are you talking, I guess I'm trying to just unpack that question or kind of feedback you've shared from what you've seen on other LRT or infrastructure projects.
I can give you a great example, and it's up at Station Point. It is sort of that 90s version of graphic design, which we'll just gloss over, but they do have sort of graphic design literally embedded into the concrete that they're using. Yeah.
So not part of this presentation, but we'll get into, like, I think our facilities have a lot more kind of design features, if you will. Like our stations have unique soffits with a lot more angular aspects to them than some of the transportation structures we saw today, which are a lot more like clean, uninterrupted lines. So maybe that'll come forward in some of the later presentations. And again, some of those facilities are seeing public art, which will, might. Right now we're looking at ceramic frit on the glass, which might be controversial too, because we know glass gets broken on transit projects, but it has like the biggest impact we've found. And, we're hoping that maybe people will be nice to transit infrastructure for once, so we don't always have to say we can't have nice things. But are you talking specifically, you think there's ways on some of these transportation structures we presented today that creating more visual interest through?
Yeah, and maybe not something like, I get it. If you're going over a bridge, just get that long interrupted line. I like that. But when it comes to an area where people might be congregating, either in traffic or as pedestrians or in a neighborhood, maybe we want to take a look at that.
Yeah, no, those are good points. Yeah, balancing the user, if it's fast versus slow. We're talking pets versus vehicles, the different experiences that they would see. That's most probably appropriate for the 23rd Avenue portals, I'm thinking.
Yeah. And it falls right directly into line with the slide about the bridge and how underneath you're just going to have the weathered steel. And, because someone's going by really quickly, they're not going to be exposed to it. But in places where people are exposed for a long time, maybe we'll want to have that in mind. Just a thought. Okay. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. Karen. Is she still on?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm here.
I saw you dropped off earlier, and
I lost I didn't get the question order. So, well, thank you for the presentation. Very thorough. I'll be honest, it's out of my bailiwick, so I don't have a whole lot of comments. I guess my only real concern from a planning perspective, I was just looking at the 23rd Avenue underpass, the south portal, and I'm just looking at that from a pedestrian safety perspective on the path. I don't know. I like putting myself there. I feel like I don't know if I'd feel all that safe just walking along there. So I'm just curious. Like, it's kind of hard to tell if that path is blocked at all from the road, just that natural surveillance and that kind of thing. I'm just wondering if there's been any thought or what the rationale was for, say, not putting that path on the roadside where you'd have a little more surveillance. Just that public safety side of it, pedestrian safety.
Well, those, I think, are valid points, Karen, that you raise. We only had a visual today to show like the bird's eye view of what that SUP will look like west of the 23rd Avenue underpass south portal. there is a considerable width that's there that, we're hoping to not over landscape, but use landscaping to make it feel a little bit more comfortable. And Ryan shared how we have dedicated pedestrian lighting there to have it well lit. But recognize that at the end of the day, there is a portal wall on one side and a property fence on the other. So we're hoping just with the increased width through that area that, nobody feels necessarily trapped. I think there's far worse examples maybe in the city that we don't want to go to, but the Omega fence allows some transparency, but you wouldn't see anything low down because of those concrete portal walls.
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of feels like a bit of a no man's land, if you will. And and realizing the renderings are, well, just renderings. So.
And I don't know, Brian, do you know off the top of your head the length of that? Because we're ramping the LRT up as fast as we can to get back to grade. So the portal wall above grade, we're trying to keep it as short as possible so that it is a shorter stretch of that condition.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't remember what the length of it is. I don't know if is it like 200 meters? Something
I think the south portal's 200 meters long.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really pretty much it for my it's just that pedestrian safety perspective. But thanks, guys.
Thanks, Karen. Greg.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I agree. I also thought it was quite thorough. It walked through every kind of little aspect there. I'm glad to see that we're considering public art, although I imagine it's kind of a requirement. Sometimes I'm wondering if it's like even some of those areas where you're going underneath the underpass, whether those concrete panels have an opportunity to have some sort of art on the way out. To get some sort of art that's appreciated at a particular speed that is only experienced by the LRT. You mentioned for the bridge that goes over the Henday, you said there's a lighting plan coming for that. Is there a plan for the lighting to just strictly be like functional lighting, or is it something that you would approach maybe similar to what was done maybe on Walterdale?
You mean like functional versus maybe more decorative, Greg?
That's correct, right? Like, so and it's not that they can't both serve each other. I'm just curious what sort of ideas were for the lighting of that bridge.
Yeah, so currently we're working towards the functional lighting aspect of the design. This is the first, LRT project of the Capital Line where there's a requirement for the tracks to have a consistent lighting level for the full length of the corridor, which is no problem. We're looking at 10 lux, I think is the number. When we have LRT close to roadway, it's actually a lot of ambient lighting. But as you saw in those plan views, the Anthony Henday Drive Bridge skews quite far from a lot of existing infrastructure. So we're looking at dedicated lighting of that structure. We're looking right now at lower level integration that would serve exclusively the track lighting purposes. But as part of that, it might also have some secondary lighting of some of the like arch rib. But we're right now looking at aiming it down. I know there's like a lot of policies and such about dark skies and such that we don't want to add too much lighting, let's say pollution, by doing any sort of uplighting. But as part of that ongoing design, we can certainly look at what lighting may spill out onto the bridge and what it might do to the structure in like the nighttime.
Yeah, thanks for that, Larissa. So I'm hearing that it will be considered. It's not necessarily a foregone conclusion, but it's something that would be considered.
Yeah, Ryan, I was going to say you're kind of part of that. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, it was listed, I think, as a public art opportunity in the contract, and we did talk to the Edmonton Arts Council about it, and their initial reaction is they weren't going to pursue anything. I don't think they've completely closed the door to it for like forever on this project, but there's a couple considerations here because I did ask the same kind of questions while it's on Walterdale, and one thing that was mentioned to me is the location of this bridge is like right in the middle of the Henday where people are driving really fast too. And I think there was a bit of a concern from the province to have this kind of signature bridge all lit up at night, and then people are looking at it while they're driving too. So that was something I did here. It's a bit of a different setting, obviously, but yeah, I mean, it is listed as an opportunity in the contract, but the meetings we've had with the Edmonton Arts Council to date, it didn't seem like they were going to be pursuing it any further.
Well, I appreciate your responses. I have no more questions, but thank you for your time.
Thanks, Greg. Mindy?
Thanks, Craig. Thank you very much for your presentation. I lived in Twin Brooks for about a decade and would often see deer crossing at the Ravine Bridge. I know you can only do so much, but I'm wondering if you could elaborate on what kind of environmental studies have been done about the impact on wildlife or any insights on that topic.
No, I knew it'd get curveball. That wouldn't be in my wheelhouse. I know there have been, and we have dedicated environmental team members. And then as part of the city and Capital Line Partners work prior to the award of contract to Capital Line Design Build Limited, there was an environmental assessments and such done, but I don't want to say exactly what those were or are. Eva, do you know, or Bob, exactly what environmental studies were done prior to, or like during the prelim engineering for Ravine? If not, I'd have to take that away and actually confirm. I know there was a whole bunch of documents provided in the data room to the Capital Line Design Build team that we have to, further develop and progress from an environmental aspect.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll just add, I won't go into the details of all the studies that were done, but definitely the environmental impact assessment for the Blackman Creek crossing. And within it, we did reference, there was a monitoring of the wildlife crossings in the area, documenting what type of species or animals to be expected, and then how to mitigate or minimize impact to the wildlife corridor. And, with the construction, it is part of our expectation and also requirement to minimize kind of construction impact in the area. So unfortunately, I won't be able to go into all the details today, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mindy. David?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Couple of questions. I'm assuming that it sounds like you're still sort of working on establishing sort of a preliminary palette of materials, such as, colors, textures, patterns, materials, forms, to sort of define the character zones that you talked about in your document. You didn't talk about them in the presentation, but I'm assuming that you'll be putting together a palette of materials that define sort of the stations and the landscape approach and site furnishings and the features in the public art. Has that been done, or is that a work in progress?
Still a work in progress, David. And yeah, we can touch more on the details of that in that 5th presentation. That's not currently on the schedule or agenda, where a lot of the materials and palettes, and then also like the species of landscaping, be it trees and shrubs and others, and how those correspond to the character zones and opportunity areas and the neighborhoods and such. That would be the plan for that 5th presentation. I know Ryan talked specifically like 23rd Ave. We're still looking at, final finishes for those panels and those portal structures.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, like anything that we talked about today, a lot of it is predominantly concrete for the bridges, and then the steel for the Henday Bridge being painted. There's a lot more limited palette for these structures, and there'll be additional palettes that we'll present for the facilities for sure. And then also that SUI landscaping 5th presentation.
Right. Yeah, it would be really nice when you get to that point to see that clear connection between what you've sort of selected as, this palette of materials and how it relates to the character zones that you're trying to establish. Most certainly, sort of going back to Councillor Paquette's comments about landscape, it would be great to see this as a naturalized corridor, with sort of mow strips along the road and the shared use path, because that just in a lot of the LRT projects, there's just a lot of ornamental landscape that's being done that really doesn't get cared for after the initial install. So next question I have is it my understanding that the shared use path terminates as it goes across the Black Mud Creek to a sidewalk? Because that's what I saw in the plan drawings that you provided. And I just wanted to clarify, I'd get some clarification on that.
Sure, yeah, that's probably one of the more complex shared use path areas along the corridor. So yeah, we do have that SUP up to the north side of the Saddle Black 19th Ave intersection. And then once users cross Saddleback Road, they can either continue west of the tracks, and then that SUP section carries you down into the ravine, and showed up in some of those Black Mud Creek renderings, the winter one and the summer one on screen, where there's a person walking their dog. So that brings folks underneath the bridge.
And then there's a separate pedestrian bridge under the bridge.
No, sorry, I should probably just bring up a map. This is like a picture's worth 1,000 words, probably. Let me just see if I can toss back up on screen pretty quickly.
Yeah, I guess the main question is, how does the SUP connect from the north side of Black Mud Creek to the south side of Black Mud Creek, or vice versa? So
yeah, so I wonder if there's like a pen or laser pointer here. The path I described just quickly there was this one on the west side. So this actually, you would go down below the new LRT bridge.
Oh,
You're not sharing.
Yeah, you're not sharing.
I'm not sharing. Thank you. Sorry, I tossed it up on screen, and then you guys were all behind me and I didn't see it. There we go. I even had a laser pointer on. I was getting real fancy over here. Now you see it.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay. So here's that, like I said, SUP is on the west side of the tracks. They can cross over, and if they want to head down into the ravine, they'll continue on the west side of the tracks and go down below the new LRT bridge. There's an existing trail system that they would tie into. But if you want to continue south along 111th Street, you actually have to cross the tracks. You could cross on the north side here.
Yeah.
Or sorry, no, I lied there. Sorry, cross the road first at night, Saddleback Road, then cross the tracks.
Right.
And then this is a new SUP that continues between the roadway and the tracks.
Yeah, so then it hits a yellow line there, which indicates sidewalk. And I'm just wondering why the SUP is not continued in that section.
That might have just been my bad with colors. I should refer to it in the presentation as an SUP, but it is on the existing roadway bridge. I guess typically I think of SUPs as being asphalt, but it'll tie into the existing roadway bridge.
Okay.
And it's concrete, but it is like one continuous path that they'll just transition down.
Okay, that's
Sorry,
good.
that wasn't clear.
No problem. And then I know that this came up the last time this came to EDC, and it's regarding the Twin Brook Station and its situation so close to 9th Avenue. And, you know, I know it was brought up the last time, if there was an opportunity to shift that further north away from the intersection, so that it could provide a better interface with that intersection and provide a better connection to 9th Avenue. And I don't know if that was looked at any further after the last time. It was a good number of years ago that this was here. If that was looked at any further, and if not, and if it's sort of fixed there now, I don't know if there's been any sort of discussion with the SO owner with regards to creating, sort of enhancing their site to incorporate a stronger pedestrian realm and connection between the station and the surrounding, you know, neighborhood. So, because right now I know there's not a lot of detail shown, but I just find that very weak and very convoluted. if you know what the existing conditions of that Twin Brooks ESO is. So.
Yeah, I can share. I don't know if it displays well on screen. We did, since picking up the reference concept design done by the city and Capital Line Partners, their owners, engineering team, we've shifted the station north by about 10 meters away from the intersection. So there's now a slightly greater space between the kind of bottom of the ramp, if you will, and track crossing and the intersection itself. But then this becomes kind of just like a no man's land. Nobody's supposed to go here. But we really were looking to align the track crossing at the bottom of the ramp of the station with this east-west crossing of 111th Street. So that was more intuitive to pedestrians.
Right.
And then because of recent changes too, since you would have seen Capital Line being presented, it was in 2023, I believe, in January and February, with the decision to go with 2 lanes along 111th Street, and then the shifting. This SUP actually used to be on the west side of the tracks.
Yeah.
We've shifted.
And I do appreciate that. That was, another point, talking about how sort of compressed that cross section was, and and what it would do to the housing to the west. But as I said, I do think that a real good look at that interface with the ESO and how this all connects, to the neighborhoods to the east and west is really important, because most of the other stations that have gone in have some form of mini plaza, and nice sort of, as I said, a good public realm sort of transitional space. And this seems right now sort of floating in space type things. So, and as I said, I don't know if there's an opportunity to talk with the ESO owner and create a bit more public realm that ties in the neighborhood, the intersection, and the station, a little bit better. So, anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, now because of the SUP shifting, we also have like a bit more space now on that back side. But we have, ETS always requires parking to service the stations. So there is a bit of this area. We haven't fully designed and developed it just yet. It's again, maintenance of any landscaping back here. We want to be mindful of that. But if it's hard surface versus soft surface, I don't know if it'll be a true plaza, but
yeah. Well, you know what I'm saying is that most of the stations that have gone in have some public realm definition, and even adjacent business owners have sort of contributed to some of that. I know because I'm working on Bonnie Doon, so there's a transit plaza that we've connected to that station, and so on and so forth. As I said, like, I don't know, maybe there's some sort of discussion that can go on with the owner to just still provide those operational requirements, but really establish a strong pedestrian realm that relates to establishing those character zones that you guys talk about in the document. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, David.
Thanks, David. Nick?
Thanks, Craig, and thanks for the presentation. A lot of the comments I think I'll probably reiterate. Is good actually to see the trail on Twin Brooks Station being relocated. And just going back to David, I think that gas station will probably have to sell anyway, because it's probably going to run out of business, and probably a good opportunity for some infill in there. But anyway, separate from the subject matter, overall, I live in this area, so I know the area pretty well. I'm in Twin Brooks, so it's going to be interesting to see how you get emergency vehicles with the 2 gates going down at the same time on 2 roads in and out. So I'm interested to see how that functions. But overall, I think it's great. I think it's fantastic to see this happening. My main concern is probably seeing around Black Mud creek and the bridge going over, I really have concern about that fencing. There's already issues in the river valley there. It really doesn't look great compared to your 2010 preliminary design, which looks a lot greater. And I think it's going to cause the city maintenance costs as well, not just the fencing, but also underneath. And, you know, if you take that time out on a planner, so I look at it and I go, you know, how long before it deteriorates? It's not in a very visible place. So I think better design needs to happen on that bridge around that opening. Pretty much going back to your 2010, you need to have a design, I think, more like that. To do otherwise is really going to have problems. It's going to be problems for the city. It's going to be problems for the community. I just, you know, fencing isn't going to survive. It's not going to. I think Aaron Pickett mentioned about, you know, well, someone brings a chainsaw along or whatever, but it's also maintenance. So that's really my main concern. We've got to do a better job at these interfaces in terms of it is a public rail. It is where people go. I do cycle down there, but you don't want it suddenly becoming a place where people are in fear of not wanting to go down there. So I can only stress, if I can, the importance of doing a better job around the closing up of those bridge openings that you have. Otherwise, I think it will become a problem for the city in the long run. You know, it may seem fine in the moment. You know, you put up a new bridge and a fence and all that, great, but it won't take long before that becomes a problem. So I'm hoping, and I think the artwork would be just putting some in. I think that came up as well about, like you've shown in the 2010 design, maybe it doesn't have to be as elaborate as that. It could be simpler, but creating some elements, creating some lighting elements along those walls as well for visibility. So that's really my really main concern. I do know that area very well. And I'd like to use it too, down the shared use and going through the river valley. But I think the design needs to be considered. So that's the main comment there. Otherwise, I'm just experiencing all that nice construction going on at the moment. So how many years do we have? 3? Oh, that's right. We get delayed. It'll be another 2 years. So they have 5. Is that right? Because nothing's on time. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. That leaves me. I don't know if I have anything new to say that hasn't been said before, but I also do agree with David at the public realm at the Twin Brook Station. It looks pretty narrow. Nick couldn't have said it better about the bridge at Black Mud Creek. I agree wholeheartedly that the 2010 design is far superior. I don't think the fence is a right choice. The opportunity for public art, kind of like we see in the shared use path on along 109, just under Jasper, kind of using murals to liven that space up. It looks really low, even kind of at the pedestrian part. I know it's just a rendering in this scale. It's probably just not reading correctly. It looks really low, and I know there's probably bigger factors to consider when looking at the height of that bridge, but the higher the better with that path underneath. That would be my biggest one. The panels you referred to as shiny panels, I'll echo what Greg said about incorporating art on those panels, and something that can be art at speed-based art, I think, would be great. And where we have that portal coming up, let me just find the sheet here, where the shared use path is right along the portal, the 23rd Avenue Underpass South portal. I wouldn't mind seeing some vegetation alongside that fence. Even trees, something to be in front of the fence. But that's about all the comments I had. So let me jump back here. We'd like to thank you for bringing this before the Edmonton Design Committee. We will now transition into deliberation. Feel free to remain in the meeting, but we ask that you don't participate in the questions or deliberations that will go on. So thank you again.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll open up the deliberations. Does someone want to start us off? while I get to our document.
I think as I mentioned, I think it's really important that we have a good sense moving forward of what this palette of materials is going to be to help define those character zones. So it would be nice to see that, and then we were able to see sort of the aspects of durability and appropriateness and so on and so forth, operations, maintenance. And then the other one I've sort of noted here is that, looking at considering the relationship of that Twin Brook station with respect to the surrounding context, be it the Esso station, the intersection itself, or the surrounding neighborhood, and making sure that we establish a well-defined public realm and strong connectivity to that station and around that station. So.
Okay. And I see, Nick, you're starting to type up the comment about the Black Mud Creek fence.
Giving a crack.
Yeah.
Craig, I will put forward a motion of support.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
You need a seconder.
I'll second.
Thanks, Craig. And Janice.
Not sure if this is the right wording we can use, but
That was David and Greg. Any other comments? Trying to remember what came up here. Did we want to say anything about the Henday Drive LRT bridge? Were we satisfied with the lighting question? I can't remember who asked that one.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, I'm not going to be able to argue that lighting at that location is not going to be distracting. So it sounds like they've considered it to some extent, right? Like, it does get a lot of people driving by, so it would just be I think a good opportunity for art, but at the same time, if there's a safety concern, they've made a consideration. It sounds like they've chatted about it and ended up at that result. And I guess it's still open, but it's not, they're factoring it in, right?
Yeah. And then who had brought up the question of a bike path across that bridge?
That was me, but that's been clarified.
Okay.
Yeah, that is. I can
error.
I can attest to that, David. I've cycled down the bridge, and I know it's a multi-purpose. So.
Actually, we did the original bridge many years ago.
Greg, I think Councillor Paquette has his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that. Back to that, the bridge over the Henday. I understand the desire to not have a distraction, but just from a practical point of view, and maybe this could be in partnership with the province, but on extremely snowy days when there are snow clearing vehicles out, I wonder if there would be an option to add some lighting there that would flash orange and amber as sort of a larger sort of warning to folks, because sometimes, especially in heavy snow, you may not see those lights until you're right up on those vehicles. So I know that there's a desire to avoid distraction, but maybe some lighting consideration could actually lead to increased safety. So that's just one thing that occurred to me on that bridge. And I also wanted to just lend my support to the idea that if we can design something that doesn't necessitate fences under bridges, that's also something that I think would be much appreciated. But I understand that this may be a decade too late. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Is everyone good with the points that are showing on the screen? Administration, are we okay with the language?
Hi there, Peter. The second bullet, create an improved design between the interface of the public realm. Unfortunately, I missed the conversation, but if I was reading this, I wouldn't really understand what that was driving at.
The interface of the public realm. So that is the PUD, that the trail system that runs along the side of the bridge going under the river system, Peter. If you want us to, sort of the public realm.
Great, but is that tied to the idea that there's that portion of the bridge that's pretty shallow that people could hide under it, and if there's only a metal fence at that location, you know, the opportunity to get in there is increased as opposed to not having a gap at all.
Yeah.
Does that work, Peter?
Yeah, I just suggest you just cut to the chase. Like if the point is to close in certain aspects of the bridge, or just to be more considerate of septet considerations, is just to say that, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, I think as we wordsmith that, we can now I know what you're talking about. We can work with it.
Yeah.
Does this make sense? Do we want to say that?
Yeah, it's not just closing it in; it's also having good illumination from a, you know, going down the side. So it's a combination of those factors. That's why I put in SebTed, Peter, because it covers those elements.
Yeah, I think we can work with that.
Can we not be specific about those two items? I mean,
otherwise, I think it's pretty good.
If that looks good, are we ready to vote? Yes, all good?
I think so, Craig. I think we're good.
Okay. So for the motion of support as shown on the screen, we'll go by the comment order. Jonathan?
Support.
Karen?
Support.
Greg?
Support.
Mindy? Mindy? We'll come back. David?
Support.
Nick?
Support.
I support. And Mindy? Still there? We need her for quorum, don't we?
No, you've got 6 votes.
Oh,
Jonathan, Karen, Greg, David, Nick, Craig. You've got 6.
okay.
So you don't need Mindy Spray. Sorry.
Type your response.
Okay, with that, the motion is carried.
Parker's absent.
All right, let me get to the agenda here.
Yeah.
The next item.
If you want, Craig, you can turn it back over to me.
Sure, with pleasure. I pass the chair back over to Janice.
Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to let Allison know to join. I think she was prepared to come a bit early. Yeah. Do you really want a donut? Yeah, really? Yeah. Why don't you go get it? I don't like.
Oh, Wes, want a donut? Roll up the rim?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, we're just explaining to Wes how roll up the rim works.
I've never done it before. And I want a donut. Yeah, that's great.
Somebody doesn't want the donut.
I don't want the donut. I was hoping for something bigger. Anyway.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I think I saw Allison join.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Hi, Allison. I see a few other people are joining too. So if you could just let me know how many we're expecting.
It's just myself and Amar who just joined.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'll do a brief introduction and then I'll turn it over to you. If you are, Peter, Ashley, if you could start, stop sharing your screen, I mean.
Yes, boss.
Okay. Thank you. And Allison, if you have a presentation you want to share, you can start doing that while I do my intro. So of course, we'd like to welcome you to the Edmonton Design Committee for the formal DP presentation of 108 48 74th Ave multifamily residential project. We would like to remind you that this is a public meeting. We have all received and reviewed your submission package. You'll have 10 minutes to present, and then we'll go virtual roundtable of the committee's members for questions. After the presentation, the committee will deliberate, and then we'll respond back to you in writing within 48 hours. So with that, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself and your team and the project. And we can see your screen.
Okay, great. Awesome. Good evening, members of the committee. Thank you for your time today. My name is Allison Roseland. I'm an urban planner with Situate, and I'm here today with our client, Amar Rondoa of Leancraft Homes, to speak about their proposed project at 108 48 74th Avenue. So today I'll provide an overview of the project, its design and principles, and talk a little bit about how it contributes to the public realm along 109th Street. So the project site is located in Queen Alexandra at the northeast corner of the 74th Avenue and 109th Street intersection. The street is within the 109th Street secondary corridor, and the project aligns with city plan and SCONA district plan policies that encourage more housing at a variety of scales, densities, and designs in a walkable, transit-friendly neighborhood. And as part of the redevelopment of the site, the SCONA district plan requires that streetscape improvements along 109th Street to support the creation of a pedestrian-oriented public realm. These improvements are expected to occur incrementally as required through private redevelopment of sites along 109th Street. So the city has indicated to us that these streetscape improvements will be required for this project. And so we have incorporated the preliminary redesign into the drawings. And I'll discuss that redesign and how the proposed building integrates with the public realm in more detail. So the site is 494 square meters in size and is currently zoned RMH 16, the medium scale residential zone, which allows for buildings up to 4 stories. The RM zone allows for a variety of housing types, including small scale residential as proposed in this development. The proposed development consists of 5 3-story, 3-bedroom row houses, each with a 1-bedroom secondary suite for a total of 10 units. Each row house has a total floor area of 1,305 square feet. The secondary suites on each end have a floor area of 500 square feet, and the interior secondary suites have a floor area of 516 square feet. And the building height is 11.3 meters. City policy encourages active transportation modes and transit use. So for this project, on-site vehicle parking is not provided, with the aim to attract residents who use these transportation modes and do not rely primarily on personal vehicles. That said, the site is within the Communado car share area, which would provide residents additional options for vehicular transportation when needed. The project is designed to integrate well within the existing neighborhood, providing a gentle increase in density and building height that respects the existing urban fabric of the surrounding low-density, ground-oriented residential area. Queen Alexandra is a well-established neighborhood that is experiencing gradual redevelopment. But that said, less than 1% of dwellings were row housing in 2016, which is the latest municipal census data available for dwelling types. This project will help improve housing diversity in the area. The site is within walking distance to schools, parks, and commercial areas. It is also well served by bus routes on 109th Street, 106th Street, and 76th Avenue, and bike routes along 76th Avenue, 106th Street, and 112th Street. The site is surrounded on 3 sides by an alley and 2 streets, and the surrounding area is primarily low-density housing, mostly 1 to 2-story single-detached houses. There is also some row housing located southwest of the site, kind of kitty corner across the intersection. 3-story row houses on the subject site is a gentle increase in density and will fit within the existing context. As I showed on an earlier slide, there is currently a fence on the property along 109th Street. The pedestrian network will be enhanced by the building and site design with multiple pedestrian connections into the site from 109th Street, which is shown generally by the purple arrows, which will help improve interaction along the street. As I mentioned, the site is also well connected to the transit system. There's a northbound bus stop approximately halfway along the site, and there's a southbound bus stop across 109th Street and slightly south of 74th Avenue, within easy walking distance of the site. As you can see on the site plan, the units face 109th Street with ground-oriented entryways. Balconies for the row houses on the main floor and ground-level patios for the secondary suites provide amenity areas, enhance the ground-oriented features of the homes, and provide a transition from the building to the public realm, which helps create a people-friendly street. The site plan also shows the proposed 109th Street public realm improvements, including the creation of a green boulevard, relocation and wider 2.5-meter sidewalk, and the relocated bus stop and amenity pad. Now looking at the landscape plan, new trees and shrubs are primarily along the sides of the buildings. The new landscaping on the south side enhances the public realm along 74th Avenue by providing a buffer from the building and visual interest along the side of the building. On the north side of the site, the landscaping helps screen the waste collection area for pedestrians walking along 109th Street. A row of shrubs along the edge of the ground level patio provides a natural definition of the area while providing a soft transition to the public realm and creating a green connection to the boulevard. In summary, the landscaping plan prioritizes greening the areas of the site adjacent to the streets, thereby enhancing the public realm. The building was designed with an active frontage with street-facing windows and doors. Variations in facade depth, material changes, and the articulation around the windows and row house entrances provides visual interest, breaking down the massing to fit within the existing urban fabric. Large triple pane windows provide energy efficiency and lots of natural light. Facade materials in light and dark colors create definition and visual interest. Balconies on the main floor and the third floor and the patios provide outdoor spaces for residents and enhance the urban streetscape experience. The entrances and the balconies are recessed, which provides protection from Edmonton's winter weather. The covered entrances on the main floor balconies provide further protection from the weather elements and help define the entrances, while maintaining open sight lines that provide safety and connection to the public realm. This render shows a slightly different view of the building. It highlights the ground-oriented entrances and amenity areas fronting onto 109th Street and the defined pedestrian connections to the city sidewalk that provide a transition to the public realm and help create a people-friendly street. The building design integrates durable and low-maintenance materials to prolong longevity of the building. The material palette was chosen to provide a contemporary but timeless appearance. Metal paneling on the facade provides durability, and the black accents around the windows and entrances provide contrast from the primary gray color. Natural materials, including wood and brick, bring warmth and contrast to the building design. Glass railings on the balcony allow light onto the balconies and provide an open and modern aesthetic. Moving on to the floor plans, the first plan shown here is the secondary suite level. Each unit has one bedroom at the back of the unit with the kitchen and the living area at the front. The 3-story row houses have efficient family-oriented layouts. The main floor, which is shown here, features an open concept kitchen and living area and a powder room. On the second floor, there's 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And lastly, the master bedroom with an ensuite and private balcony is located on the 3rd floor. The next few slides show the building elevations. As I mentioned earlier, the facade articulation provides visual breaks and interest along the building wall. Large windows provide natural light, and the main floor is elevated by approximately 1.4 meters, which allows for more light into the secondary suites. Windows along the back of the building provide light into the kitchen and the bedrooms on the upper stories. By locating the amenity areas along 109th Street, there will be less noise impacts and additional privacy for the neighboring property to the east. The facade continues around the corner of the building, which provides continuity from the front and reinforces articulation rather than a blank wall. Windows on the north and south sides of the building provide additional natural light for the end units. On the front of the building facing 109th Street, pedestrian scaled lights are provided by each row house and secondary suite entrance to provide light for safety and ambiance in the adjacent public realm. Pot lights above the 3rd floor balcony further contribute to the ambiance, and the use of downward oriented lighting reduces light pollution. Although there are no entrances on the south side of the building, lighting is also provided here to enhance the public realm along 74th Avenue. And on the north side of the building, lighting is provided for the waste collection area, as well as to provide ambiance. As I start to wrap up the presentation, I want to circle back to the 109th Street improvements and the site's interaction with the public realm. 109th Street is a key secondary corridor, and this project enhances its pedestrian experience. The cross-section illustrates that the site layout prioritizes pedestrian connectivity and a transition to the public realm. The ground-oriented entrances, main floor balconies, and ground-level patios are human-scaled. The amenity areas and the entrances have lighting that provide ambiance and safety. In the streetscape, improvements will improve walkability and enhance the public realm with a wider sidewalk, green boulevard, and pedestrian-oriented lighting. So in summary, the project aligns with the urban design principles because it aligns with city plan and district policy goals to provide density and housing diversity in a well-connected location. It strengthens the neighborhood by delivering high-quality, family-oriented housing. It has connectivity to the transit system and cycling infrastructure. It supports walkability by providing homes within walking distance of parks, schools, and amenities. It allows for a small incremental change that fits within the fabric of the community. It has human scale design with ground level entrances, balconies, and patios oriented towards 109th Street that create an active and inviting streetscape. It encourages sustainable and efficient land use by replacing a single house with 10 new homes, thereby utilizing existing infrastructure, and it incorporates energy efficiency energy efficient materials, and creates a transit oriented development. And lastly, it integrates with and enhances the public realm along 109th Street. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Allison. We'll jump right into questions. Greg, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thank you, Allison, for your presentation. There's a couple things I want to ask about. One is with the ground level patios. When I look at the landscape plan, it seems to be a bit of a pinch point to access them, like the stairs and the 1 meter buffer, and then like the patio access piece. It kind of appears as if, how do you get into them? Where
I see. Maybe I'm wondering if can you see my cursor? If I
can see your cursor.
Yeah, I almost think we need to extend like the walkway a little bit to like in and remove part of that landscaping so that you can actually walk into the patio. Would that resolve your question?
Yeah, that would help. And then when you look at the upstairs as well too, it just seems like you're kind of side shuffling in and then starting your journey up the stair to go in because of the landscape.
Yeah, I almost think we just need to like essentially cut off one shrub from each end, and then that will widen that area so that you can walk freely up the stairs and then also walk right into the patio without having to like basically walk across the landscaping.
Yeah, that would be helpful. The second piece, just looking at the corner of 74th Avenue and 109th Street, when I look at the house to the, it would be nice if that south unit didn't necessarily face 109th and it faced like 74th in a way to kind of tie 74th streetscape to it. When I think of, when you're walking down 74th Ave, say towards 109th Street, because this building is so proud to the adjacent building, I wonder if the adjacent unit never really gets replaced, not that it will be, but like if it gets replaced, are we really aligning with the setback of the adjacent piece? And if not, like you're walking down here and you're kind of getting your first look at the east wall, which is less going on than, say, the rest of the building in that particular case. And I almost feel like you have to kind of wrap it and address that 74th Avenue piece so it's not to feel like an end cap to that block. So I don't know if there's opportunity to rejig how that unit interacts with 74th Avenue.
Okay. Amar, when you were working on the preliminary design of the building, did you consider having the south entrance, or pardon me, the south unit have an entrance to 74th Avenue?
Yeah, we looked at that and it wasn't working out properly. The building didn't look right, but there is maybe a design element that we could do on that side. Rather than a block, we can probably wrap the exterior finishes on that side as well, considering that to be the front, maybe a little bit more. Can you go back to that elevation, Allison?
This is
exactly the south elevation right there. So maybe we can probably do a little bit more there on materials and what we can do so it doesn't seem like it's an end cap to the front of the building. Maybe.
I guess I look at the end cap as a being of the block. So it's like if you go up to the other elevation, the east elevation as well too, the full left unit, or at least 2/3 of that full left unit, is kind of what you see when you walk down 74th Avenue from the east to the west. And that's kind of how I see this kind of building shooting out. And it'd just be nicer if it tied a little bit better with 74th Avenue or in relationship to the setbacks of the homes there. They're all quite setback, but I don't have an answer for you of how you would do it right now. because it does appear to be a bit of a significant move to the building in general. But if there was a way to get the entrance there and maybe consider wrapping the materiality or concept more on this side here, then it won't feel like you've hit the blank end of the building, like right adjacent to the home in its front yard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess my final comment would be, when I look at the material palette, I wonder if you have too many materials in your palette. I look at, like, you got 5 different pieces kind of going on. When I look at the consideration of the brick, it does seem to be in a bit of a strange place, almost like a border of your patio, when, usually those materials are a little bit more grounded. Or where you've got number 6, it's like, well, I would have expected the brick to start there and kind of continued on if the brick were to be used, or vice versa. But I guess that's just more of a comment than anything there. But I'll leave it at that and let my colleagues provide their input.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Greg. We'll go to Mindy.
Thanks, Janice. Thanks for your presentation. I don't have any questions. I did have the same thought as Greg about the diversity of materials, but there is some really great visual interest there. Maybe just rethink that a little bit. But I really appreciated your responses to the principles of urban design. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that, Mindy. We'll go to Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Alison, for your presentation. I'll just mirror what Greg was saying about that. So at the end that he is speaking to, I think there's something that could be done in terms of the interface with 74th. It looks like the architect there probably has some design solutions. The only other one, I'm just curious on the distance with the house to, blended. I know we're transitioning here, but it looks pretty close to the house to the east, I think it is. Your images one showed a sort of a correlation, but it didn't really show that interface. And just from an urban design point of view, I'm just curious. I think we're going through part of that transition, Alison, where there's single and we're starting to do infill, and some of the rules have changed, but it is important that we try and look at what that interface is at the moment, because the house looks pretty close to me. Anyway.
Yeah, it is built to be, so because we're the building height is less than 12 meters. Yeah. The setback is 1.5 meters from the interior property line. So it does, yeah, it would be it's closer than it would be if we were building, say, a 4-story building under the RMH zone or the RMH 16 zone. So I guess your comment is then more about like the design of the back of the building, how it interfaces with the adjacent.
That's pretty much where I was going, because that's where it gets a little bit blankish. And whether you could use tactile elements to maybe separate it up a little bit in terms of the individuality of the units without putting too much expense into it. But just to think about that, I mean, there's not that many windows and elements like it, but it is a bit of a blank canvas on the back. That's where I was going. So maybe you think about some elements that you could do in your palettes along that elevation, just to break up the massing of the building.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's some just minor things that we could do on the facade just to create some articulation without drastically changing the design or something. But just to create a little bit more visual. Yeah, I do see what you mean. It feels like a wall, right? So if we can kind of
you just need some materiality, I think you could use to break up, and even showing it as like independent, whether it's a line through down the center or something. That's not too excessive, but just adds a bit of variation and show it's not a one block, solid block. So that would be my main comment. But otherwise, I mean, I think it's great. It'll be interesting. I hope these work well, given where it's at. It's going with where I think the plan was meant to go. So good on you. So thank you. But that's really my main comments. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks for that, Nick. We'll go to David.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. I'm going to build off of 2 of Greg's questions, comments. So first, the patio amenity space. Like, I think the comments about opening that up a little bit is important, so it's accessible. But the question I had was, what has there been any consideration of establishing more of a raised seating wall planter bed there and adding a gate access to better sort of define the patio amenity areas and also the upper and lower stair entries? And what that would do is also create sort of a privately enclosed space and sort of enhance the interface with the public realm. And Allison, you sort of said it, it would stop people from walking across the shrub bed, because that's exactly what's going to happen, no matter how wide or how narrow you make that walkway. But to add that, just a 450 mil sort of planter in there and a gate, creates much more of a private space for that, for the resident. And then it sort of provides a better definition between that space and the street, especially now that you're adding a 2.5 meter walkway and boulevard there and so on and so forth. So it'd be something to consider. Okay. Then I'm not so hung about about the unit facing 74th Ave, but maybe there's an opportunity to create a better connection to the neighborhood and the public realm by adding some additional sort of private public amenity space along there. So it's sort of, it provides the opportunity to maybe screen some of that south elevation with some more trees and maybe like a community garden sort of space, so that it addresses the neighborhood, that transition from 109th Street down 74th Avenue into the neighborhood. So that might be something that you could consider. And then I'm still a little lost. I'm a landscape architect, so my last question is going to deal with the landscape. I tend to disagree with your comments about how the soft landscape, I don't see how the soft landscape is, both the design and the species are enhancing the development. So I'm not really too sure what the intent was around the landscape. As I said, I think there could be more opportunity to look at year-round form and massing and accents and textures and colors that better enhance the overall development and create those different types of spaces around the building. So I'm not really too sure what the intent was. Like, a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on the planting design, and it can really, make or break, a development like this, especially one so prominently situated along 109th Street. So, I don't know. What was the planting design intent?
I think so. There's a couple of things. I think because it's a relatively small site, so we were trying to maximize the space like between the east property line and the west property line, which is why we don't have a lot of landscaping along the front, because we had to make space for the balconies and the amenity area. And that this kind of jumping back to your previous comment, because I like the idea of having some sort of raised planter and making that a bit more visually interesting. So because of that, and then to meet the planting requirements, we were trying to accommodate most of that within the north and the south yards, because in the back there wouldn't necessarily be a lot of light, and it's not really a walkway, it's just sort of a grassed area. So we didn't really want to put more of the vegetation back there where no one would really be going. So that was kind of the reason for putting it in the front, the north and the south yards. But perhaps there's some changes that we could make just to make it look a little bit more intentional, because it's sort of just like mixed landscaping right now, right? It's not super orderly, I guess is what I would say. Is that kind of what you mean? Like you want to see?
No, as I said, I think just the way in which it's been arranged and the species that have been selected. Like, there could be a lot more done with sort of massing plants together, so on and so forth, to sort of define those, those walkways. And as I said, maybe a little bit more of a sort of shared amenity space on the south side. And most certainly, I don't suggest trees go in those planters along the frontage, because you're going to have new trees along the boulevard. But as I said, planting actually can create and complement the architecture of the building. So, and I just think they could be a little bit more thought. And I wouldn't be, in order to sort of address Nick's question about that relationship between the building and the residents to the east, like, I wouldn't see any. I just feel that maintaining sod back there is going to be difficult to do, and you might as well, maybe add some columnar trees along there, and create a mulch bed in there, and provide some additional screening between, the building development and the residents to the east. So, and just make it a non-maintained area. So, and then take away all of that sod cutting. So anyway,
okay.
Thanks for your presentation. I like this development. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that, David. We'll go to Craig.
Thank you. I did have a question that I think maybe I'm kind of understanding through the questions of my colleagues here. That patio amenity area is at grade. It's not sunken.
It's at grade, yeah.
Okay, so I understand. I like what you said about kind of shortening it, and kind of David's comments about raising that as a planner and changing the access. Is the intent for that amenity area to be used by the basement suite?
Yes.
Okay. My only other, I kind of won't dwell too much on it, because I think Greg's and David's questions and your responses have been good thus far. My only thought is maybe because that bus stop is right there, and kind of you'll have people congregating there. Maybe an idea is you had talked about shortening that planter, kind of one plant on each end. Maybe if that's an amenity area that's for the lower suite, that maybe it can block off the kind of stairs, so they kind of lose the direct connection kind of right to the sidewalk, and you kind of snake them through the other end of the amenity space. So it's just maybe like a slight rejig of kind of where you're entering, right? Maybe you block that stair off right from the direct access, and you just kind of have to meander through your own patio amenity area a little bit, and maybe that gate can be alongside the stairs. Just a thought. I do agree with the south end of the building needing to relate a little bit more to the 74th. I don't know if a light does it. I like David's comment about a garden or something communal there. My only other thought would be perhaps the balcony can wrap around, and that can give it some activation and some massing along that south face. And kind of Greg mentioned the back side, the east side. And I realize that as this neighborhood transitions, and that neighboring building to the east in its redeveloped form would probably push its front yard south as well to better align. But for the time being, it is a little bit of a blank wall facing east. That's about all I had. Overall, I think it's a good project. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that, Craig. We'll go to Karen.
Hi there. Thanks for the presentation. Yay, density. I do have one. It's more of a little personal pet peeve, but we focus on family-oriented units. But my wondering is if there's been any thought of the stuff that comes with kids. So you've got the bikes, you've got the strollers, you've got the toys. So those storage elements that come with a family-oriented, family-friendly development, sometimes I feel gets missed in these infill projects in general. It's nice to have the kids have some outdoor space, and even if it is small, it does really make a difference in the quality of life of kids. Of course, realizing lifestyle choices and all of that, but there will be that clutter. So I'm just wondering if there's been any consideration around that kind of storage, or just that other little element that sometimes seems to get missed.
So not specifically, at least not outside. I think just with the way that the building was designed, with the entrances being at the front and there not being any at the back, everyone has to come in and out of the front door. So probably things would have to be stored inside. I realize that's difficult when you have bikes. Right?
So something to consider, just that design consideration.
Yeah, I'm wondering. Yeah, we'll maybe think if there's some way where we could accommodate some kind of storage area where those things could go. Amar, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was just looking at that, and the balcony that we have in the front, is there a way to create a storage area there?
Yeah, where there could be just a door, like maybe it's on the opposite side of the entrance, and then there's a door, and you can just lock it from the outside or something. That doesn't have to be super large, but just somewhere where you could store things without having to haul them into the house or something like that.
Right next to the window. I just
and it might help your marketability as well.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a great point.
Just a consideration for you.
Yeah, we'll take that away and think if we can come up with some kind of solution.
Alrighty. So that's it for me. Other than that blank wall at the back side, I find that rather imposing. But otherwise I think everything else has been said. So yeah, thanks, and yay density.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks for that, Karen. We'll go to Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Yeah, I love density. Just want to make sure it's designed well, obviously, and contextual. And I feel like there's some work that can be done on this project. It's just like a large rectangular slab from a design standpoint, extruded vertically. And so I think we've heard from the committee a few different comments about the interface between 74th Ave and that kind of narrow strip of a south elevation. I liked the comment about potentially like a wraparound balcony or something, which would help provide some eyes on the street, as well as help activate 74th Avenue, which I would argue is the more I guess I could say residential, pedestrian friendly street than kind of busy 109th Street where you get splashed by a bus driving by through a windrow and puddles. I think one way to help with the overall massing, just feeling so imposing and just sort of like a straight extrusion, it's like a wall to the neighborhood or the block, I guess, is to simply pull back some of the roof overhang over the balconies, and so you can kind of create a bit of a feature with those rectangular those build outs around the window, and then so from the pedestrian perspective you would actually see a bit of articulation in the roof line, and really you're not getting that much shading anyway from that overhang. It's such a narrow balcony, so I think if you pull back the roof line and kind of emphasize those square bump outs where the windows are, then it would create some articulation, some visual interest on that west elevation. On the south, I think I mean, glazing is one option to improve the south elevation. I know, there are, I think the top level is a bedroom, and you already have a larger window on the west side, so it may not make sense to add another window. But I think that could just have another look. And then on the rear of the building, I think there are ways, perhaps there just needs to be at least two materials used here. I know the front or the west elevation is quite busy with a variety of materials, but the east elevation we're looking at basically one material. I know there's the some material kind of wrapping around the corners, but perhaps you can alternate, so it's more like a kind of like a row housing development. Perhaps there could be maybe some like reveal lines or other bump outs of some sort. Just knowing that this is a building that's kind of like it's a bookend on the block, and so I think it's important to understand that pedestrians and even people driving along 74th Ave, this is what they'll see almost the entire block. At least at this stage, they'll see kind of the third floor of the building, but. Aside from that, yeah, I love how how the building engages with 109th Street. I think the amenity space for the basement kind of being at grade is interesting, and I think a potential resident of that basement suite would be happy with that kind of grade patio. So that's great. Just trying to find ways to do a better job of engaging 74th Avenue, and then maybe some roof articulation so the mass isn't so imposing as sort of like a bookend on the block. Yeah, those are some of my comments. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Jonathan. I don't think I have any items that haven't already been covered from my colleagues here. I really would like to echo, I believe it was a comment that David made in regards to consideration of a raised seating wall or planter at those balconies, and also kind of maybe potentially playing off what Karen was talking about potential bike storage or things like that. If that does become a raised planter wall, if there was an ability to incorporate an anchor point that someone could potentially chain their bike to the raised planter within their own balcony area, would be a potential, opportunity to at least give residents the opportunity to secure something within those areas. Karen gave a thumbs up there. So I have 2 kids. I know what it's like to have stuff. And similarly, I had the same kind of thoughts about that east blank wall. I just think some small moves there could definitely improve that visual now, especially before, potential future developments to the east. So with that, we would like to thank you for bringing this before us. The committee will transition into deliberations. Feel free to stay on the call. We just ask that you don't participate in the deliberation portion. So, and Allison, maybe I'd ask you to stop sharing your screen. Okay.
I figured.
It's okay. Sounds good. So with that, I'll open it up to the committee. Thoughts, comments? I heard some positive density. I think Nick.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they're heading in the right direction. I think we all had most of the comments. I think David's done a pretty good job actually at getting most of them encapsulated here. So, I'd put a motion of support forward based on the comments that are there. I think, it's close, it just needs some refinement, but
I would second
my
it.
comments.
Okay, sounds good. We got a motion of support, seconded by David.
Yeah.
Ashley, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, we're just going to flip it over now.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. So similarly to what we had heard during the questions there, the first one kind of captures that thought about considering the raised seating wall and planters, and also kind of that entry into those patio spaces. The second one captures the comments for considering, a garden amenity along that 74th Ave, or the potentially consider reorienting the south unit to face the avenue. Third bullet, I believe, captures the comments that David had regarding landscape considerations. Fourth was the blank wall, and Karen's still talking or typing. Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments?
I have thoughts and comments, but it doesn't relate so much to this project as it might be as the setbacks that are being defined by the zoning. Like I think we're starting to see this on a few projects where the development pocket is just, it's maximized, right? And like to see arguably this is a 3.5-story building 3 meters off of 74th is like, it's wild to me. They all support density, Karen, for sure. But I mean, some of what I'm starting to see around the city just seems so aggressive as far as that pocket. And I know it's not a discussion about this project per se, but I think it's something we're starting to see a little bit, right?
Yeah, I won't disagree with you, Craig. It's yeah, it's rather imposing.
Like, because I mean, we very much kind of, from what I hear from people that have come to the city or visited the city, is often they very much love the greenness of our city and the trees and all of that, and it's just, everything is just getting really tight on the sites where we're talking about, like David said on this one, kind of grass won't grow back there. Can we put something? Like there's just not a lot of spots for natural vegetation sometimes on these projects. And that's not, kind of, like I said, not a criticism of this project. It's just kind of maybe being a little bit critical of setbacks as established by the zoning bylaw, but just me.
I think, Craig, we're going to see it. I understand what you're saying. The challenge is, the real reason behind the density comes back to the economics. Our residential base tax rate is too low and our non-residential isn't increasing. And to be fiscally resilient, that's the only choice we have. So I totally understand what you're saying, but with the city growing to the way we're growing, we have to be more efficient with our land use and our infrastructure. And so we've got to be innovative. I actually have more, the setback I feel it's not so bad. It's the one where we're getting quite close to the neighbors, and that transition that goes on, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's just I mean, my comments are just kind of general to these types of projects that we're seeing in EDC, and I'm seeing in neighborhoods as I just kind of go around the city, right? Like
that's change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, one of the things I do agree though is we need better, stronger urban design, because as we go density, the trouble is we're not used to how to do good design, and that's where we're falling through. I'm an advocate now for any density over 25 dwelling units for net residential should go to a master plan. It shouldn't be put into an area structure plan. It should be master planned. But we could have another debate on this whole thing. So, but I know what you're saying, and it's a challenge.
And I don't know, personally, I'm hopeful that we're going through growing pains and we'll see improvements over time as we, work through the baby steps. So I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic, but yeah, fingers crossed.
Sorry, I didn't want to derail the conversation.
I didn't
click my pen at you. To have.
It's easy to do in this debate for sure.
David scratching his head, raising his eyebrow. Okay, so we sort of have 5 up there. Karen, can I ask a question about the last bullet? Like, I totally get it.
For sure. Yeah, and I'm
Um,
not sure it's worded quite right.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's a way to tie it to the submission package, because where were you drawing on the family friendliness? Like I know under principle A2,
Yeah.
they kind of noted that this typology is providing family friendly homes. Like, is that where you were drawing it from?
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like our design, like this is maybe a bigger picture, but I feel like particularly the infill design in general does not lend itself well to child friendliness and family friendliness. Just yeah, I mean, I'm also trained as a teacher, so I kind of yeah, I do question how we're building those interfaces for our kids. Maybe I'm getting a little philosophical, but
Yeah,
but
I just wanted to make sure that was where you were
yeah,
pulling it from, was kind of that principle A2.
yeah, and, you know, like we want to attract families. We want diversity in our neighborhoods, but you know, how do we ensure our building designs fulfill those needs?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, I totally admit that was not well worded.
Yeah, David's
working on it. Yeah,
I think he's writing bicycle racks to mitigate.
Bicycle racks, storage, you know, like and just clutter in general, because I mean it is a high visibility site as well.
Yeah. Well, and especially in regards to like the bicycles, like I said, if the consideration in bullet point 1 moves forward, there's at least some opportunities there to give them ways to securely store personal items.
And that thought too, when the idea of the planters and that, you know, that idea, I thought lended well.
Okay, any other thoughts or comments? Okay, if we're all good with what's shown on the screen. Just one quick question, administration, any comments?
No, actually looks pretty good.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll go to David's raising his eyebrows again. Okay, with that, we'll go for the motion of support shown on the screen. We'll go in the committee question order. We'll start with Greg.
Support.
Mindy.
Support.
Nick.
Support.
David.
Support.
Craig.
Support.
Karen.
Support.
Jonathan.
Support.
And myself, support. Motion has passed. Okay. So once again, Allison, thanks for bringing this before us.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, so with that for the committee, we will move. Well, we get feedback from City of Edmonton.
Nope.
Oh, at least on my side here.
Yeah, we're just getting ready to just chat about whatever you want to chat about.
Okay. Well, I think I have to put forward a motion to go in camera, right? I think the next one's informal.
Well, before you do that though, Ashley, just remind me, Keith is not available till 7.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, we're actually ahead of ourselves, which I know is very rare, but here we are. So we could talk about the work plan. We could just adjust the agenda a little bit, talk about the work plan for a few minutes, and maybe take a break for dinner.
Okay, that would
Is that all right
sound
with you?
good. So we would like to hop forward to item D.1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just give us a sec here. We're going to just illuminate ourselves. Okay. I don't think that's the last project, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so just a quick update. In no particular order, the reason I was late because I was over at Urban Planning Committee for presenting the principles of urban design in a very abbreviated presentation given the time of the day, but I think it was received rather well. And Janice, just so you know, when you go on Monday with our support, there will be some other questions that you'll be posed. So you and I will have to chat about just to kind of prep you for what those are. They're not too bad, but just so that you know that they're coming. Okay.
They're coming. Okay.
Yeah. And like I also said, we'll get a presentation together and that will help communicate the key messages around what we were able to achieve collectively through the annual report. So just want to shift gears for a second here. So as most of you, or hopefully all of you will know, we're going to be bringing the work plan for this year to a close in the next 6, 7, 8 weeks. We are scheduled to be wrapped up by the end of April. And so we did have a meeting with the subcommittee last week and put forward a bit of a schedule to do that. And what I think the committee needs to know is that the intention is to provide you with a final draft on or around April the 8th, which is just over a month, about 5 weeks from now, and anticipating a 2-week review that we would look to do a special meeting with the committee on April the 22nd. You have a scheduled meeting on the 15th. That's probably too tight for us, and I think we need to just carve out some time to talk only about the standards and procedures and the principles of urban design. So that's the recommendation, although as I was writing this out on my notepad, I also made note to myself that we may also want to reserve the 29th as well, just if we find that there's just a little bit too much to do to get this all finished by the end of April. So my suggestion is going to be I think we'll block out both of those dates, the 22nd and the 29th, but we'll know by the beginning of April by when we get the package to you, again knowing that we'll give you 2 weeks to review it. So I think that's the update. Are there any questions of the committee?
Not seeing any hands.
Okay. Okay. Well, if anything comes up over the rest of the evening, we can certainly answer it, but maybe then I'll turn it back to you, Janice, to decide what you want to do, take a break. I'm assuming that's the right thing to do.
I think that's the right thing to do. You said they're not available till 7?
Yeah, so about 20 minutes.
Okay, well, how about we break until 7 and we'll do roll call right at 7.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
So how are things today?
Bad.
Yeah.
It's been kind of busy.
Yeah.
What's your day? Like,
Well, I wasn't busy actually. I sat in council chambers all day.
right. Yeah.
I probably mid-morning, I probably couldn't come back over here because it was almost certain that we weren't going to go till the afternoon.
Yeah.
I was going to say, don't they give you a time, like a
No.
time slot window?
No, they sorry, I didn't realize that the
Yeah, you weren't on mute.
yeah, we're still streaming. There's instances where council or committee can elect to make a time specific item. And typically it has to do with like registered speakers and things like that. So for example, today there were two items, one around safety on the LRT and one around complete streets. And because the transit had the advisory committee and complete streets had like 10 speakers, they pushed those to the beginning. So they do move things around, much like we do with city projects. So there is some of that, but no, there was actually some sense that our report may have been bumped because like at 4:30 we still hadn't been up yet. So 4:45 we got up there and we didn't even make a presentation. They just like I'm not even sure we asked. They just said like, no presentation. We'll just ask questions. So that's what happened.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was funny. Like all of this stuff around rejigging the schedule, I just did it all on my phone. Like I had my laptop with me, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, like 80% of my work I can do on my iPhone.
Yeah.
All right, I am going to mute, just so that we're muted.
Sounds good.
Okay, we'll talk to you in a bit.
Okay, we'll do a quick roll call. Hi, Keith. I see you joined. The committee just took a break. Okay, we'll do a roll call of the committee members. We'll start with Craig.
Yeah, I'm here.
David?
Yep.
Greg?
Here.
Jonathan?
Yep, I'm here.
Karen?
Present.
Mindy?
Hello.
Nick?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Do we have administration back?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, sounds good. Being this is an informal presentation, I'll make a motion that the Edmonton Design Committee meet in private. Can I get a seconder?
I'll second.
Thanks, Nick. Is there any objection to the motion to meet in private? Okay, hearing no objection, the motion is passed. Keith, are we waiting for anyone else?